Hey everyone, welcome to Shunya One, episode 137. How's it going, Amit?
All good, man. Really excited about today's conversation. One of the bigger companies we've had
Yes,
on.
I know. Actually, it's. I'm glad that we're talking to some, or rather, again, this format is allowing us to talk to folks who we otherwise couldn't get to call to our Bombay studio,
Absolutely.
and that's why more Bangalore founders, of course, and. And yeah, we're talking to Akash Sinha, the CEO and co-founder of Cashfree. Cashfree is actually uh, the one of the bigger, I would say, fintech and I would say payment infrastructure players in the country. In fact,
hmm
you've probably used them already,
I'm sure.
seemingly unknowingly as well. Uh,
I'm sure
these are
everybody has, though, right? I mean, like they're everywhere.
yeah. And that's the fun thing about fintech, right? I mean, sometimes they're just in a layer which you don't realize.
hmm
You may not know the brand, you may not know the company who's solving that problem for you, but yes, it's underlying. And that's actually one of the more interesting things that I think came out in the conversation, that
Yep.
these guys have been building out the tooling plumbing layer of fintech, as we call it, right?
Yeah.
And they've been doing it profitably.
A whole bunch of stuff which we never even really thought about, right? I mean, like that we need, and basically, when you look at how some of these companies are operating today, right? I mean, like, yeah, you need some of the stuff that these guys are building. So, I was really impressed.
Yep. And there's a lot to, hear about their story as well. So let's jump right in. Hey Akash, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Where shall I, Aditya? Thanks for inviting me on the show.
You're in Bangalore, right? How's life in
Correct.
Bangalore?
That's good. Actually, I came back to city like 3 days back. I was in Himachal for last 10 days.
Oh,
So, yeah,
lovely.
it's good coming back to the warmer weather.
Oh, really?
Right.
This is, I mean, must be a great time to be in Himachal too, actually.
Yeah, I think right time they just opened things up. The crowd started coming. So, I
Ah,
think 10 days before might have been much better, but yeah, it's fine. I think it's good. So, seeing a
And
lot of new
you
places.
you run like a super high growth fintech startup. Did you actually manage to get some downtime?
I mean, see, not like proper downtime. I think for any startup guy, you have to take a break every 3 to 4 months. I think that's very
Yeah.
important. And then that could be just 3 to 4 days. Right? You don't have to make it so big. You don't have to make it a big deal that you need a downtime. But you should do
Right.
what's comfortable to you, what's relaxing to you, right? You cannot just do something standard, right? You just do. I mean, for people, it could be just reading or going and play sports. That's different
Right.
for everyone.
So
But yeah,
just to give everyone, listening some background, like obviously you're the co-founder CEO of Cashfree, but what was the origin story of Cashfree, and maybe personally yours also? Like, why did you get into this? We've read about Y Combinator, we've read about all the
mm,
interesting growth you've had, and we want to talk
right.
more about that. But give us some background on how this all came to be.
I think if I have to find the starting point, I have to really go back to my college days. I think in my college itself, I was pretty curious about building stuff. Right, so I actually picked a couple of freelancing projects when I was in my second year. So that really taught me few things about, other than coding. I was, pretty good in programming, triple IIT, HSA, thankfully good college in teaching about programming. The same time I got a freelancing project and we had to do things other than programming, right? Like creating a product management module, writing some documentation, this, that. So that made me aware about how do you do things to bring a product or software in the market. And that was the
Mhm.
starting point. And luckily by end of third year, we managed to start a small startup in the college itself, targeted towards students applying for 12th examination, and we can help them find the right college for them. A very simple concept, but that was also a good exposure moment for us. We did that for 6 to 9 months, then wrapped it up, set for placement, and then I joined this corporate world. Right? But again, that thing stayed with me. I felt like I have learned enough to start something from zero, and I had this good, how do I say it, right? I mean, craving for gratification of building something new. I'm
Yeah.
getting feedback for that, right? Then fast as I worked for 2.5, 3 years, college was pretty hectic, so I had to take a break for some time, right? Enjoy
Take a
life.
break by working,
by
basically.
working, by
Yeah,
getting a job. Yeah.
Just
true. I
to
mean,
clarify,
yeah,
not
take a
Himachal
very
break. work job break.
Work break plus having some fun at the same time, because you get some time, and also you start getting money, right? That's also important part, I think, coming out of college.
Right.
I did that. I mean, pretty chilled out, but I think around 2015 first half, I met my co-founder Riju through a mutual friend. We both were on the similar boat, right? I mean, he was also trying to start something up. He did few startups around, like home rental and all. And I had this experience of doing things back at college. So we started bouncing ideas, and online, e-commerce, hyperlocal was picking up that time, especially in 2015 era. You must have seen the entire food tech thing growing up, hyperlocal growing up. And that time we figured out this problem around, payments, right? We felt a lot of people are ordering stuff from their home, but they are facing challenges while paying for them, right? Especially if you choose COD. You have to struggle with that cash. If you don't have cash, you have to go to the ATM, get a cash. It was not a very easy and convenient experience. So that gave us our first entry point. Then we discussed, how do I make it digital? Right, as soon as the delivery boy shows up, can I pay digitally to that guy? That was the problem statement for us. We built a very simple solution. It was just a link-based payment we created out. And as soon as a customer makes the payment, delivery boy will get a notification and he'll just walk away. Right, so we built a small prototype in a month. Right? I left my job at Amazon around September of that year. Right? We built this product, within a month. And then we started scouting for customers. That was also, not easy, I'd say, right? I mean, finding even your first customer. So luckily, we made friends with, few guys in the restaurant industry. So we signed up one restaurant near to our home itself, and we used to sat on their galla, right? There, wherever they get a customer orders. As soon as they get an order, we used to call the customer back saying, hey, instead of paying cash, you can also pay us digitally. I'm going to send you a link to your phone. Just open it up. And at same time, we also used to add discounts, right? To make it, easy for them. And that worked, right? If you pay through this online, you'll be, getting 50 rupees discount. So that's how we got initial few customers. Then we signed up almost 300 to 400 restaurant, grocery store, or similar kind of shops in Bangalore. Right, we used to get out of the house every day, take a bike, travel to these shops, talk to their manager, convince them on the product. So it was a good exercise. We did that for 6 months, but then we felt like it's very tiring. I mean, getting into offline acquiring, and the product also matured slightly. And during that 6 months time, we got to learn a lot of problems about these businesses. Right, few of them were launching their own online web store. They said, look, can you also help me with the online payment collection? Few of the guys mentioned problem about, how do I make payments to my delivery boys faster, right? Say if I change my delivery boys every 6 days, 7 days, it's very hard for me to pay to them on a regular basis. Right? So that's how we started, learning about these problems. And then we kind of sat together and figured out, let's, expand our canvas instead of just working on this small use case. There are a lot of, larger problems in the payments which are yet to be solved. And the incumbents payment gateway companies were not aggressive toward it. I mean, at least from outsiders. Internally, they might be working, but from outsiders, we felt they're not aggressive towards these kind of new problems. And that's how real Cashfree started. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned all of these things, right? Because the time frame, if I'm right, the time frame you're talking about is when e-commerce food tech, like you mentioned, is sort of happening. Small businesses taking direct payments is just starting.
Right.
You said the incumbent PGs were not really focused on these sort of problems, right? So what were those new problems? Because now today the world has changed, right? Someone listening to this show obviously thinks, I mean, this is ubiquitous, right? I mean, paying by mobile is seamless today. What had UPI launched by then? Was it in the world?
UPI launched in 2000. Yeah, we started in 2015 and UPI got launched in 2018.
Exactly. So this is pre-UPI. This is when it's literally you were generating links to pay. What was that? I'm trying to get on. What was that first unique sort of clincher of an idea which sort of just scaled you guys up? Was it the link-based payments? Was it something to do with QR? I mean, everything is. I mean, I don't think QR even picked up by then. It was probably much later. So what was that one piece that you saw was working, which made you take on the behemoths of PGs out there?
Yeah. See, QR back then was just picking up. I mean, companies like Paytm, MobiKwik. See, the entire concept of paying digitally in offline world was new, right? In offline world, that time people just used to pay using their card. right? But second thing, we were pretty heavy mobile users ourselves, right? Even back then, right, smartphone was not very ubiquitous, right? People had a smartphone, but they were very basic phones, right? But luckily, we were slightly ahead of the curve. We had better phones, and we were pretty heavy mobile users. So it felt comforting to us to make payment from the mobile, right? And you get a link over SMS, just go to it. And instead of card, we added wallet options there, right? So entering card details is a bit cumbersome, right? But if you use Paytm, MobiKwik, Ola, there were like 6-7 other wallets. It was pretty easier, to do that. So wallets plus payment link, I think was the right, call from our side. So that clicked with a lot of merchants and the customers. And plus discounts on top of it, right? Really made this product attractive. But the larger agenda was, how do you do this transaction without using cash?
Does UPI have effects on this kind of thing in terms of how this functionality of yours would function?
UPI just make life a lot easier, right? So instead of sending a payment link right now, we just send a UPI link. You click on that link, you open your UPI app, and payment is done within 10 seconds.
Right.
The UPI has made this kind of flow much simpler. You can also send a UPI QR code as part of your bill. Customer can scan it and make the payment, right? There are a lot of cool things you can do with UPI now, which companies like Amazon, Flipkart have picked up for sure.
Correct. So before that happened, right? Before that happened, the payment landscape is exactly what you said. There were the wallet companies, there were the PGs like the PayU or of the world, and they were worried about web e-commerce transactions more. And obviously, the wallet guys were. I honestly don't remember now what their focus area was, but they were everywhere. What did you? What stopped the wallet guys from sort of scaling when you did? Like, why was a merchant preferring you versus the individual wallet people saying that, hey, I can pay by Paytm here or pay by MobiKwik if you have it here?
Right.
What was that? I'm curious to understand the merchant side of the thing, incentive also.
See, I mean, if I talk about offline world, right, it was pretty much both. We used to aggregate all the popular modes. Right, a merchant, if they just have to work with, say, Paytm or XYZ or 10, right, it's a lot of effort for them, right? Getting into 10 different contracts, doing so many integrations, right? And we are giving all the integrations on a single page. So that was one advantage for these offline, merchants. But for online, a lot of these new business models, right, they need multiple payment flows. I'll take example of any food tech company, right? Say if you're running a company like, say, Swiggy, just as example, and you have tied up with 100 kitchens. And as soon as customer pays you, say 100 rupees, you have to settle 90 rupees to those kitchens and 10 rupees you keep you as a commission. Right? See, this sending money to your real seller was pretty tedious. And that was a new phenomena back then. Right? I mean, before everything was inventory led, then now marketplace, this entire system started back 2015-16, right? So that was a new business problem in the market itself. And no gateway or wallet was ready with such kind of solution.
So you were doing the reconciliation also. So you were solving for more merchant pains as well, not just the consumer side.
Exactly. So collection was anyway, we built it using gateways, but we built the new about how do you pay to your vendors, sellers, or stakeholders on a timely basis. Right. So using Cashfree, when we launched Cashfree as a platform, we had 4 products on it. One was collection, other was payouts through which you can disperse. Other was auto collect, through which you can accept money through bank transfer mode, right? Other than digital modes. And then we had a marketplace settlement, right? Through which as soon as money comes in, you can settle money, you can split money into multiple ways.
Okay, interesting.
And that was new. I mean, that was new in the Indian system, right? I mean, you just had PG, now you have a payments platform offering 4 new products.
Interesting. And was this the reason, like when you guys applied to YC and obviously then got through, what was that sort of winning value proposition which even those guys saw? And what time was it well after you guys started? Was it after some initial traction? What was it like?
I think by the time we got into YC, we had decent revenue. We are making like what 3.5K. How much is that? Like 30,000-40,000 rupees per month in revenue. Like and able to process, I think 3 million, like 20 CR in a month kind of transaction. Right. So we were having customers, but our YC pitch was very simple. State our application written Cashfree automates bank transfer in India. That was the entire YC pitch for us. And that was pretty strong, product to build up, right? Automating bank transfer is a big deal. Right? If you have to pay to 1 lakh people, right? If you do it manually, it kills 48 hours of your time. You have to employ 10 other people, and you have to again do extra things to make sure there is no error in the system.
Yeah, I know. I mean, back when I used to have to do this, I remember creating sort of CSV files and uploading it
Correct.
in HDFC's iNet and whatnot, and just doing
Make a
that whole.
checker.
Yeah,
And at
make
the
a
moment,
checker.
the moment your bank changes, you have to change your entire format. Right? It was
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
painful. So our solution was very API driven, right? You just call cash-free APIs. You give me the bank account number of the recipient. You send me the amount, and the way you send the SMS, in a similar way, you are sending the money. Right? So that was pretty powerful. Back in again, it's still pretty powerful. I think we're the leader in that space, but it was pretty new back then.
What made you actually become successful in working with these banks? Because I'm saying again, we're talking pre-UPI days where everyone had to support a format and had to sort of work towards a uniform API
Right.
or of sorts, right? And the banks had their own platforms. They hardly worked with startups in the first place.
That's
And
true.
then you're saying, you scaled with their scary APIs. How did that happen? How difficult was that?
It was hard, but luckily I see, I think that phenomenon is picking up in Bangalore, right? A lot of banks started becoming startup friendly, especially the smaller and tech driven banks, like RBL, Yes Bank, or ICICI slightly. So that was, I think, good time for us. I think if we had started in 2011, I'm sure we wouldn't have gotten this support which we got in 2016, right? Because we saw the ecosystem changing. But now it's much easier, right? I mean, for anyone who's trying to do startup in fintech, it's much easier to partner with a bank right now, right? But it was pretty hard.
Right.
But luckily, few guys in the bank, right? Not say as a bank, but few people in the bank were very comfortable, very friendly to the startups. And we eventually hired one of the guys in Cashfree after 4 years, right? I think, and that is a very good thing to happen. So we met them like in a cafe. They understood our problem. They understood the solution we're bringing in the market, and they gave their support to us. Right? So we took like 3 to 4 months to integrate with their APIs, and then we went live after that. Right? So a lot of things. Yeah.
After this initial sort of growth spurt, and then obviously YC happened, so it gave you even a better platform. You guys obviously scaled up, but then the market also caught up with payments and fintech, right? I mean,
Right.
suddenly 2017-18 it was no longer food tech and e-commerce. It was actually fintech. I mean, we started the show around 2017.
2017,
yeah, so I remember all of our conversations were fintech to begin with, right? So that was a fintech boom sort of year, and then UPI and everything else. So how did you all tackle this sort of market catching up, and not just catching up, I would say maturing to a very large degree, right? How do you maintain like the VC question, your moat since then?
I think to be honest, it was tough for us. I think the market that we got into was crowded even before us, right? There were a lot of incumbent players, and we always had to prove our differentiation. So initially, we had this uniqueness on the product, but over that time, I mean, data is, I think, the best answer, right? You don't have to share a story if you have the data. And in the initial 2 years, we were pretty fast. We were very, like listening to customers' feedback. And we managed to sign up, larger enterprise clients, right? Enterprise clients who were doing more than 20,000 to 50,000 payments per day, and that's pretty significant merchant base for any payment gateway in India. And that helped us to a point that we have built a very great unique product, but plus we also have the ability to go and work with a larger customer, right? And we had to do it quickly, right? The speed was a differentiator. Right, we were not slow. We had a very small, lean team. We were able to just do things faster, right? And we used all these cloud technologies, AWS and all, to scale up product faster. Right? We used to work for almost six and a half days, right? I mean, half day of Sunday was off, but we used to work for 6.5 days straight. Because we knew, right, if you are slow, others will catch up to it, and then we'll lose relevance pretty fast. So we had to get good customers on the platform to strengthen ourselves. And then, we started innovating a bit more, getting into more customer base. But initially we were lean, we were very focused, right? Instead of going out and, acquiring 1,000 customers, let's just acquire top 5 or top 10 customers, right? So that we don't get into noise and
And this is like a sort of a zero sum market, right? If a customer works with you, do they not work with the others, or how is it?
I think it depends on the size. If you're pretty large, I think I'll use the same analogy on the banking industry, right? If you're a larger business, then you work with 3 to 4 banks for different reasons. Similar kind of plays happens on the fintech world, especially on the payment side. Right? So when a business becomes larger, they tend to use 2 to 3 payment companies because of backup reason, because of they get different kind of support.
Do you call yourself a full-fledged PG now? I mean, you guys are full spectrum, all things payments.
We are, other than PG, we call ourselves, payment infrastructure for India. It's not just for payment collection. You can do anything around payments, right? And other than domestically, you also use us for cross-border money movement. If you have to settle money outside India, or if you have to receive money from anyone outside India, you can use our platform.
So how does that work? Like RBI regulations around making payments outside of India are fairly complex and complicated, right? So I've got to assume that that's very challenging.
Correct. That's true, but there are a couple of channels which RBI opened up recently. So one of the channel is OPGSP, through which using the invoice AWB, you can settle money outside India. Then there is a LRS channel, Liberalized Remittance Scheme, through which you can settle your travel payments, education payments. It's not very free flow kind of money movement. They have different kind of streams, and these streams have different requirements, not together. So we are supporting few of them. The underlying stack is Swift, but on the top level, as per the regulation and policy, we gather certain documents, correct? We validate certain data. Say as part of LRS, I think as a customer, you can spend 7.5 lakhs, in a year. After that, will be TCS, and there's a lot of kind of regulations there. So we validate those.
250K US annually.
Yeah, 250K, but 7.5 is after that you'll be charged TCS of 5% or something.
Correct. Interesting.
Akash, I just want to kind of circle back a little bit to one of the things you spoke about, right? Which was the way that you're receiving payments and dispersing payments kind of in a two-sided market, right? So how does that, how does the money flow over there? I think that I'm curious, right? So when a payment is being made by, let's say, I'm ordering from Food Tech XYZ, I'm ordering some food, I'm making a payment via credit card or via UPI or whatever. Where does the money actually sit before it gets dispersed? And what is the time frame involved with all of this kind of stuff? I'm curious to know how that kind of works.
Right. See, in terms of card payment ecosystem, when a customer makes payment through their card, so the card issuer bank, settles the money with the acquirer bank on the next day.
Right?
So as a payment company, you have to work with acquirer bank or otherwise sponsor bank, in certain thing. So say if you're using card of ICICI and my acquirer bank is HDFC. Right. So when you make a payment through cash-free payment gate, ICICI will settle that money to my HDFC account, cash-free HDFC account. But cash-free will settle the money to the merchant or to the vendor of the merchant as per the instructions.
So you basically do the direct hop. Vendor of the merchant is also.
So it goes straight out.
Yeah, exactly. That is part of our split product, right? So we'll just give the commission to the Swiggy 10%, and the rest 90% could go to the vendor directly from cash-free. So this removes the hurdle for. Otherwise, Swiggy has to maintain its own escrow account, right? Then they'll have to do their own financial work to do the settlement. Right? It just adds a burden.
Right.
And these are very trivial process, right? You don't have to put people for these kind of trivial work. The system can handle all this kind of workflows.
A trivial process, but in its own way, kind of very interesting, right? Because again, even though it's, I hear what you're saying, that the process itself is just it's math and formula and all that, but the fact that the money is not going, so when it comes to you, and this might just be this kind of thing, right? So the money comes to you. I don't know. I'm just a little confused. If the money never translates to Swiggy, right? How does all the taxation stuff and stuff like that kind of play out? Does that work on top of this?
No, the taxation, you see, cash flow is one thing, taxation is different, right? I'm not a C, but what I understand, you can do.
It's just, I'm sorry, it's just what popped into my head.
Swiggy's revenue still hits their bank, right?
It still hits their bank.
Pass-through stuff goes directly. And that's not revenue anyway. That's
That's anyway not the revenue, right? 90% belongs to the vendor.
Oh, that's right. Actually, that's right. The tax is being paid by the vendor. The tax is not being paid by Swiggy in this case. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Dumb
But
question on my part.
it's an interesting. No, it's an interesting segue
it's a
into what I
possible question.
wanted to
Yeah.
find out, right? Because again, when you call yourself an infrastructure player, you're essentially automating what is already allowed. It's just too complex to do. So all of this infrastructure layers are allowed by, or rather, available with the banks, the
Yeah.
APIs of the bank, and so on. And
Yeah.
the last few years, like you said, they've even upgraded. So tomorrow, anyone can sort of build that, right? Or rather, use those sort of publicly available or whatever systems. When you, as a product company, right, you're also for your internal customers, you're a product company. How do you stay ahead on the product game when it comes to and what are some of those newer problems that you've solved after the initial ones? In the early days when settlements was the big problem or split was the problem. What is it today? Mobile payment is not the problem so much, I would say, today. So what is that
Mobile
mean for
payments,
product
again, see,
thing?
all of these fields have been evolving pretty fast, right? Even in mobile payments, the UPI added this intent flow, and we added, SDKs to help you do intent flow from mobile web itself, right? Not from the app. So mobile app was easy. So we are building solution to, help online businesses increase their conversion. So that is also important. The infrastructure is there. We have to do layering on top of it to make it usable, make it, high converting. Right.
Okay.
In UPI, a lot of nuances are there, right? Say once the payment is done, right, you have to receive a webhook from the bank. If you don't receive a webhook, you have to query their status API to check whether payment is confirmed or not.
Yes.
Right. And at times banks API don't work, then you have to wait for MIS file after an hour, then confirm the transaction. But there's a lot of nuances in it, right? If a merchant has to do on their own, they have to spend good amount of time, right? It's almost like building a payment software. So we as a company is helping them. We as a company is like making their life easier. And we are taking this, heavy lifting of keep on upgrading ourselves by, talking to the banking infra.
So I have a question on revenue stream, and because again, this world of yours that you guys operate in is massive, right? It was already big, like you said before. It's even bigger now. So many fintech players,
Right.
and the one theme which we keep, I think, publicly sort of people hear is that it's a very low margin game.
Sure.
Payments is low margin. Don't get into payments. You'll hardly make money unless you have volume. These are very
Right.
typical things thrown around. I'm sure you have heard it from the
Yeah.
folks who have not invested in you, if nothing else. So, what have you taken a different spin on that, or are you still Are you still working off MDR, or are you still, or have you sort of tried to do something like a SaaS business? Because of the interesting products that you've built.
See, we are still a transaction-led business. SaaS business, in my opinion, is tough to do in this Indian market, right? But having said that, despite being a low-margin business, I mean, by staying lean, we have been managed to stay profitable for the last 3 to 4 years, right? I mean, it's not very new. We have proven that, so we have all the rights to brag about it. So we became profitable first in financial year 18, then 19, 20, 21. Last year, we had a profits of more than 45 CR. It's pretty significant in payments industry. On the top line of 250 to 60 CR. Right, so that the right way is to, I mean, yes, it's a low margin business, but it's also a volume game. You have to keep on, increasing your volume traffic that you're managing. The second, you have to keep your cost low, right? You have to be a very tech driven company. You cannot afford to, add a lot of people. You cannot afford to have 1,000-member team, just to run this business. Right. So if you take the engineering first approach, if you take a product first approach, then it's very much feasible to build a very big business out of this payments world. And at the same time, you have to keep on going after new, payment problems of the business, right? You cannot just build one payment gateway and then just hope things would work out. And that's why Cashfree revenue is very diversified. Yeah.
No, I was going to ask, what's the most interesting problem you're seeing these days in the payment solutions space, if you will, right?
I think a lot of states, like cross-border is a pretty interesting problem, right? We don't have the right infra in place, right? Banks also do a lot of things manually when it comes to cross-border. Right? That's why there is a slowness of 2 to 3 days in just receiving money or emitting money. So we're trying to build a faster solution there, building APIs, automating a lot of things like invoice scanning, verification of an AWB number where product has come to India or not. It's building a lot of such technologies on cross-border. The other side is we are also so far most of the Cashfree products are built in a way with which assumes that customer has a payment instrument. Right? Say if Dunzo is remitting money to delivery boy, then we assume delivery boy has a bank account. Then only Dunzo can use cash free product, right? Otherwise, cash free product is useless.
Right.
Right? Now we are trying to get into different space. We are trying to cater to the market which doesn't have a payment instrument in the first place. So tomorrow, if Dunzo onboards a delivery boy who doesn't have a bank account, and Dunzo cannot take the pain of creating an account for one guy, right? I mean, there could be more, right? But they want an easy way for that. So that's why Cashfree is coming up with the third set of product through which we want to also create payment instrument in the market so that people can use our payment products. Right?
Wow.
And as part of that,
So what, you're buying a bank?
not a bank. We want to be the access layer. I mean, we don't want to create a kind of, but we want to help
Buying a
this
bank is
access.
also a popular fintech company
I
strategy.
know. So I just read about that on Twitter yesterday. I thought maybe these guys are the ones buying a bank.
So that's a pretty responsible way. It's a running and managing bank. I mean, we want to be more on the fintech side, tech side. I mean, with the bank, you have to work on policy, regulation, compliance. It's a different kind of business altogether.
I actually have a tangential question to that, because I know you guys raised money from SBI, and SBI is the bank, of course, of India.
Right.
So if you guys are the payment infrastructure layer of India and you've pretty much got the backing of the Bank of India, that stands for India as a banking industry, but they are notoriously, if I may say so, not so tech friendly, or at least that's what it seems like. So what's your experience been, and why did you choose to sort of take strategic investment from a particular bank? Because, you know, if you intend to be sort of an infrastructure player, neutral and everything, all that.
I think SBI is SBI as a bank is also pretty neutral in the banking industry, right? I mean, and we see them making to RBI in some sense. But working with SBI will also help us know about problems firsthand, because as a bank, if you have, say, 50,000 branches in India, you get, access to problems which fintechs don't get so fast. You have to research a lot just to know about what problems exist in the market. But bank like SBI can tell you that, within half an hour, right? Because they get such a high exposure about customers' problem and business problem, right? They have a plethora of information. Right? So in a general sense, I expect a lot of banks to come and work with fintech, right? Because they have access to problem. Fintechs can build solutions faster, they can innovate. This is the best win-win combo in the market, right? I mean, I expect this kind of combo to happen a lot in this industry, right? I mean, SBI is a great example. But if more and more banks start following and closely working with fintech, the entire ecosystem will improve faster, right? I mean, just about getting there faster. So that was our reason for us. SBI, I mean, is a very large bank. And from what I know, they're also pretty tech-friendly, tech-savvy. Just that such a large bank, people don't realize it fast. I mean, not sure if you have experience, but for me, if you go to SBI ATM, you can get your money without using a card, right? You can just use a mobile app, scan QR on ATM and get your cash. So again, this is a marketing for SBI, but in the sense.
Oh wow, that's actually pretty cool. I didn't know you could do that.
I think more banks are doing that too. But yes, it is. It's the phone-based sort of your phone PIN and all of that.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't know you could do that. Very cool.
No, because your phone is like a proxy for your card or whatever instrument now, almost, right? So I think that's where. And there's it's a very common question, I'm sure, and you've answered this, and it's sort of like hygiene, right? Banking and fintech, all of this involves massive security and massive sort of regulatory compliance, right? While tech and your ingenuity and a cool set of coders that you guys probably started out as can solve for all of that. What about the headache of all the compliance paper and literal paperwork? I'm sure you might be cash free, but you're not paper free. So how has that been?
No, I think after the pandemic, we have become a lot of DocuSign friendly. I think a lot of things happen over here. But I mean, in India, I mean, that's not just the fintech industry, right? If you're running a business, you have to do a lot of paperwork in any case, right? Filing a lot of regulations and all. Right. But the answer is, I mean, as a country, we're moving towards less paper kind of system, right? So that's why the kind of problems we are solving, right? If you're able to open accounts of these customers, then they have to go through very minimal paperwork, right? I mean, those are things we're also trying to automate a bit further. Since Cashfree already has KYC of the merchant, if I have to open a bank account, I just need maybe signature of one paper and job is done. Right, and RBI is also supportive of things like video KYC, right? So we can, create a lot of cool things around onboarding of new customers to verify them and verify their PAN, Aadhaar, everything in real time without asking for them, physical copy stuff. That's where, it made sense for us to come into this side where we can also create payment instrument in the market and take a bit of load away from the banking industry and try to, bring more customer into this banking ecosystem.
Right.
Because that is something important for as a payments company. You also have to increase your pie, right? You cannot just wait for someone else to create more and more banking user. You have to also create banking users so that the payment system can be used more.
That's true. No, very true. And I mean, that's the I would say the the open market which everyone is sort of also going after, right?
Right.
People who are unbanked and yet to come into the system. And I'm
True,
sure
true.
you must know that there's quite a big market out there. So actually, on that note, like what is you mentioned cross border is an interesting new
Yeah.
challenge, but what is your horizon now? I mean, you guys as a payment infrastructure player, you said you're profitable already, which is rare for a funded startup
Right.
in the first place. What is your roadmap like? Are you guys also thinking IPO already, or are you guys, going to keep building? What's your 1 year, 2 year, whatever outlook you have on the market?
Yeah, I think we have two milestones. First is we want to increase the traffic to our platform. We have set this target of processing 10 million daily transactions in next 18 months. Right? We are like, 1/4 of that right now, 1/4, slightly lesser than that. So that is the first milestone we want to set. And for that, we'll keep on building new problems, new solution around, money movement. Right. So, and we want to not just stick with merchants, right? We want to work with all the businesses. We're also working with a lot of platforms, right? We also want to work with neobanks. Right? We want to be a, like in traditional sense, platform for everyone. Right? And eventually we also want to work with banks, right? Right now, banks also get a lot of their software built by their own set of vendors. Right? You have companies like TCS and a lot of smaller companies are there, right? So that is the last frontier. We also want to see bank as a customer and banks using us for processing their own payments down the line. Let's say if they have to process through NPCI or RBI, Cashfree should be the system they must be using. And that will be last frontier, right? Where we see a product is being used holistically in the entire ecosystem in a big way, right? So it's more about creating this highway, right? You can do analogy, and we want to have tolls at certain places, and certain places we don't want to have it. But that's how business will progress, right? If we can create more relevant highways which are fast, highways which are secure, then as a business, will grow in a good way. And the way business is growing, yeah. And the way business
And the
is
market is there, you're saying, for that.
It is there. It's growing pretty fast, right? And we are also doing a bit in growing the market faster, right? I mean, so UPI has seen a bit of saturation. It has more than 35, 40 CR of people. But beyond that, it's tough to get more people on UPI, right? It's not that straightforward. Whoever had internet, a smartphone, and lived in like urban places, they have signed up on UPI, right? So what should we do to get rest of the people, right? We still have less 100 crore people left out of this digital ecosystem. Right? So that is one second. The existing customer will also increase their frequency. Yeah.
So sorry, just to restate what you're saying, though, you think that UPI growth is going to slow down if they don't kind of find new people to bring on.
That's correct, right? That's correct.
Okay.
I mean,
You think it's reached that? You think it's got the saturation of the?
I read that the volumes are plateauing, or so it seems.
I think same sort of people are using it more frequently. I mean, that is one reason growing. But at the same time, new customers are not coming as fast as they came in last 2 years. Right, on UPI platform. And that's true with any digital instrument, right? Even I think last year 2020, right? Almost 30 to 40% RuPay cards got expired, right? I mean, the account which got opened under Jan Dhan Yojana. So a lot of these payment instruments got expired because people are not using it.
Right.
So
30-40%. Oh wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's pretty significant, right?
It doesn't sound surprising to me because again, I know that the folks who
Did
helped
those
me
people
around
even know they had a RuPay card? I mean,
no. So he, so my,
Yeah. Go
Yeah,
on,
no, I
Amit.
was just saying, I know one of the guys who works with me, right? He had a RuPay card. He knew it expired, and he's just like, I've never used it in the 2 years I've had it, so I didn't go and fill out the form. But again, he had to go and fill out the form. One of the things is had to go and fill out the form and submit it,
Uh,
while banks are in this weird space which
uh,
they were in last year, right? You're not supposed to really go into the bank and all of that, that kind of thing. So that had part of an effect as well. But that's anecdotal. But I can see that playing out, right? Especially in a pandemic situation, a lot of people probably would not have gone to renew an instrument which they don't use all that often.
True, true. So that's why I mean we believe this wallet story can come back again in the market. Right, and wallet can again link more people to UPI in one sense because UPI is interoperable, and if you're having a wallet, you can be part of this UPI ecosystem. So that way, we see UPI growing further, but again, may not be through bank account; it could be through some kind of PPI instrument, right? And that's where you also want to play a role, right? So along with creating bank accounts, you also want to help this platform create wallets for their customers, right? If someone doesn't want to create a full-fledged bank account, or give them a prepaid card through
Some
Cashfree itself.
escrow, yeah, some virtual
Yeah,
money which they can
exactly,
just
right? PPI.
convert.
Right? So this way we can reduce dependency on cash and increase it. But again, it's very early, right, for a country like India. We cannot say
Right.
the game is over or everything is all good. People are using digital.
True.
Yeah,
Numbers are
that's
really
what. While we all hear about it and we see
yeah.
that it's everywhere, it's actually still not a long way to go,
Right.
and I think
Yeah.
that's the reality.
Yeah,
That's
we are a
reality.
large country.
Yeah, Akash. I mean, do you want to do like a shout out? I know we are almost at the end of the show, or to like where folks can maybe reach you. Do you have a Twitter handle, or are
Sure.
you guys hiring? What's it? Where do people find out more about you and of course Cashfree?
Everywhere, I think go to the website cashfree.com. We have a very nice blog, blog.cashfree. We're pretty active on social media, especially on LinkedIn and Twitter. Right? It's just type Cashfree or I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, like slightly lesser active on Twitter. So reach out pretty easy to reach out to us, to our team. And we are hiring pretty aggressively. So I think before the lockdown, we were just 110 people. Now we are more than 300. And we onboarded 190 people over this remote setup. Right? I mean, that was pretty massive.
And was it tech like you said earlier? Like, is it all primarily tech, or is it like I also know the fintech industry also needs a lot of sales, field sales,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
like you
yeah.
said, the problem is also merchants on the ground.
True.
So
No, it's across the board. Definitely, we beefed our tech and product team. But at the same time, we have more people in the business development. We had people in finance. We had people in legal, marketing. So as an organization, we grew significantly, and we
Yeah,
just have
three
to see how
times.
it pans out. Yeah, when they start coming to office. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of people in field yet, and then same for them. They haven't seen their coworkers or colleagues ever since they joined.
yeah, that's true.
Cool. I'd also just like to remind everybody, please do a review on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you're listening to the podcast. A rating, a review, all of that kind of stuff helps. So please do help us out. Do that, and we'd appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Akash. This was a great conversation. Thanks for sharing with us, the whole background of what you guys do. And I must say, while a lot of people obviously know Cashfree, and like you said, the market is full of so many players. It's amazing to hear that you guys are doing so well. And obviously, you guys are such a sort of tech-driven team, building out, being profitable in the payment space. And
Yeah.
and that's really kudos to you and the rest of the team on this amazing journey so far. We look forward to seeing your next 18 months milestones play out. And if I know anything about fintech milestones, you'll meet it in half the time.
I hope so.
It's all for show. People say we are going to do this, and then they come back and do a press release in half the time saying, "Oh, we already reached because."
Yeah, very much so. Thanks, Shraddha, for inviting on the show. It was very
Great.
fun.
It was
Engaging.
great to have you.
Thanks, Amit.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.